Hi everyone, this is Steph Giordano with HSRI, Human Services Research Institute, located in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Today I'll be walking you through the National Core Indicators, generally as a project, sort of go through what we do, how we came about, and then get into the NCI Adult Consumer Survey, pre-survey, and background information questions. This video is really intended for those of you who are collecting just that background and possibly pre-survey information for the survey, so case managers or possibly other state personnel. Hopefully at the end of this video you'll have a better sense of what NCI does and a better sense of some of the questions that you'll be looking at this year. For those of you who are more familiar with the consumer survey and who have collected information in the past, I'll also be walking through changes that have taken place to the survey this year. So briefly, what is NCI? We started back in 1997 with 13 pilot states. We are now up to 44 states, which includes Washington, D.C., as well as an additional 22 sub-state entities. The project is coordinated by HSRI as well as NASDS, which is the National Association of State DD Directors. And it's a completely voluntary effort by public DD agencies to measure and track their own performance. So NCI uses indicators to help us provide a clearer picture of the services individuals as well as families are receiving from the state. So indicators are standard measures that are used across states to assess outcomes of the services individuals and their families are receiving, and they address key areas of concern, so things like employment rights, service planning, community inclusion, etc. An example of an indicator is something as to whether individuals are employed in the community, if they have employment as a goal in their IPP, whether they're having access to preventative health screenings such as regular dental visits and eye exams. Back 5 years ago, NCI was awarded a contract through the Administration on Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities, or AIDD, with the goal of helping to increase NCI state participation to include all 50 states. The contract allowed us to fund the first year of state participation for 5 states for each of the subsequent 5 years. In 2014, NCI also broadened its scope to include aging and physical disabilities as a separate project, NCI AD. And this map just shows all of the currently participating states. New states are in orange for 2015. So a little bit more about NCI goals. First is to establish a nationally recognized set of performance and outcome indicators for DD service systems. And those indicators, again, are those things that I discussed a little earlier around employment, health and safety, choice, community inclusion, etc. To do so, we have to use valid and reliable data collection methods and tools, which is why we do these videos. We hold trainings for new states and refresher trainings for previously existing states each year and provide TA as needed. And all of this is really important to states. It allows each state to make valid comparisons to themselves compared to other states, as well as look at national benchmarks of system-level performance, and helps them, again, measure and track their own performance. And all of this is really important to states. It allows them to look at their performance compared to other states, as well as the national norm, which we refer to as the NCI average in our reports, and to, again, measure and track their own system-level performance in the DD agencies. So a little bit more about the Adult Consumer Survey. The survey itself uses face-to-face conversations with the adults who are receiving services to get at information about their experiences. The background information, which we'll be delving into, is collected typically prior to the meeting, and it's collected from the best source possible. The survey measures about 100 of those indicators that we discussed earlier. They're related to system-level indicators, again, around employment, choice, relationships, case management, inclusion, and health. And it's really important to have all of the information in the background as well as within the survey to be collected in a consistent manner to ensure the validity and reliability of the survey data. So the process for collecting the adult consumer survey, it begins with collecting the pre-survey and background information and collecting as much of that information as possible from the best possible source. We then have the standardized face-to-face meeting, which is with the person who's receiving services, although there is a section of the survey that allows for a proxy respondent to answer some questions if needed. After the meeting takes place, some additional background information may need to be collected by another individual, so possibly with the individual who's receiving services, a family member, or possibly a service provider. All of the data are then entered into our Odessa system, which is our online data entry survey application. It's where all NCI survey data are entered. And the survey itself is totally random. It's a random sample of individuals who are receiving services. Most states collect around 400 surveys, although some states collect an oversample for various reasons. The survey is completely confidential. That means that when we do the data analysis, no names are tied to the survey, so we can't bring it back to the individual and look at specifically how one person answered the survey. And of course, it's adults only, so 18 and over. The survey itself consists of four parts. First is the pre-survey information, and this is all information that is collected prior to the meeting taking place. So things that help the interviewer set up and conduct the survey meeting. We ask questions like where the person lives or spends most of his or her time during the day to determine the best, most appropriate place to hold the meeting. If there is a guardian the interviewer may need to contact, if the person should have another individual present during the meeting time. And then things like familiar names and terms. So if the person has staff or case manager, we can use those names throughout the survey to ask questions directed to the individual about staff or case manager. Then we have our background information section. This again is collected from the best source. As much as possible, we like this information collected prior to the meeting taking place, but sometimes may take place during or even after the interview via phone call. Section 1 of the survey is the first part of the NCI meeting. This again is only for the individual who's receiving services. We do not allow for proxy respondents since these are more subjective questions that only the individual should be answering. We do, however, allow for translators or other persons to help the person communicate if needed. And then section 2 of the survey, as much as possible, we want the person who's receiving services to respond, but we do allow for proxy respondents for these questions as they are more objective. So states use NCI data in a number of ways for quality assurance and to help improve services of individuals and families who are receiving them, to make state-by-state comparisons, and this is not just to look at where your state is compared to others, but also to see if other states may have employed strategies to help improve certain outcomes that your state may be able to use as well. Several states use NCI data to help assist with community transition, so looking at individuals who are moving from institutional settings into the community to ensure that the transition process is smooth and to assess whether there are different experiences for people who are moving from an institutional setting into the community. A number of states also set up quality and DD councils to help with strategic planning. To meet CMS waiver requirements, and as we go through the survey, the background information, we've added several questions to help get at some HCBS regulations, and also to make reports for state legislatures. So taking a look at what some of the data look like that we produce from the consumer survey. So first is the state-specific user-friendly reports. These are reports that were helped created by the Consumer Advisory Committee in California. It pulls 23 of the indicators self-advocates felt were most important to them, and it presents the information on state-level data for those selected indicators. It's shown in a very user-friendly format, and it's a great starting place for many states as well as families and self-advocates to use in order to set some priorities. So an example of what information in the user-friendly reports look like. We have this question in the survey, do you have a paid job in your community? So we have that question written out. We show what the question looks like in picture form. You see the pie chart to the right with the thumbs up and thumbs down and the percentages and whole numbers. We have the green stick person that exemplifies what data look like, as well as the text saying that NCI tells us that 1 out of every 10 people have a paid job in the community. Another slightly more positive example here, can you see your friends when you want to? So we see again pictures of people with their friends, the pie chart representing that only 20% of people said, no, I cannot see my friends when I want to, but 80% said, yes, I can. 8 out of the 10 stick figures are green, and NCI tells us that 8 out of every 10 people said that they can see their friends when they want to. So those and all of our state and national reports are located on our National Core Indicator site, which is nationalcoreindicators.org. What you can also find on the NCI site is this chart generator, and it allows you to look at any of the items from the consumer survey for your state, or looking just at national outcomes, and you can look at data from 2008 all the way to the current year. You're also able to look at some of these data by various filters, so where a person lives, for example. We have as an example here the last time the person had a pap test, and this is for women 18 and older. And we can show any changes to data over the years. And here again is just where you can find our NCI website, some of the things that you can find on the site, as well as contacts to our NCI project directors from HSRI, who's Alex Bernardi, and NASD's Mary Lou Bourne. Our next video, we'll start getting into the survey. We'll start looking at those pre-survey questions.